Hi, Shar. How you doing?
Good.
Good. Nice to see you.
All right, hey everyone, I am going to call the January 26, 2021 regular school board meeting of Independent School District 622 to order. The time is 6:03. The first thing on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion and a second to approve?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Livingston,
Second.
a second by Jarman. All in favor say aye, and Kim, please call the roll.
Caleb Anderson.
Aye.
Steve Hunt.
Aye.
Ben Jarman.
Aye.
Nancy Livingston.
Aye.
Julia Martins.
Aye.
Charlotte Natardi.
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. So we have an approved agenda. Next on our agenda, we have public comment, which is an opportunity for the public to comment on items. They have between 2 and 4 minutes to share their thoughts. Tonight, we do have one public comment. Is that correct, Kim? Yeah.
That is correct, just one tonight. And we asked you to read it.
Okay. So from a parent who asked me to read their public comment. This is from Paula Graw. She's a proud parent of a Tartan senior. So I'm writing this email tonight to ask the school board to discuss a backup plan for graduation. In just a little over 4 months, both North and Tartan should be celebrating another graduating class of seniors with a graduation ceremony. With the way things are right now, it doesn't seem possible to hold a ceremony for students and family at Aldrich Arena, as has been the longstanding tradition. This year's group of seniors haven't had the opportunity to learn in their school buildings with their classmates and teachers this school year. They have missed out on so many fun experiences and activities as well. If things don't change, our seniors are on track to not step foot back into their high school. They will never have a junior-senior prom, and they may not get to experience relay again. Our high school seniors deserve to have a graduation ceremony. Each of our high schools have football stadiums with plenty of outdoor space for social distancing. The school board is a part of the graduation ceremonies every year, and I'm asking that they work with the administration and the schools to start discussing how to make sure that this year's seniors have an in-person graduation ceremony to celebrate their hard work and accomplishments. And I know we don't usually reply to public comments just as a matter of practice, but maybe at some point, Christine, I don't know if you want to do it now or later, you could, because I know we do have plans in the works.
It is part of my COVID update today. So you'll hear a response.
Great, thanks. All right, next on our agenda is the consent agenda. I'm just waiting for it to pull up on my computer for some reason. Okay, so the consent agenda consists of routine items that are acted on in a single consolidated motion without board discussion. Board members have the option of pulling items off the consent agenda if they wish to consider them individually. So on our consent agenda tonight, we have A, minutes of December 15, 2020 business meeting. B, minutes of January 12, 2021 special meeting. C, minutes of January 12, 2021 work study session. D, routine personnel. E, change orders. F, bid award. G, bid calendars. H, disbursements. So does anyone want to pull an item before I read the resolution. Okay, then be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 622 that the consent agenda items A through H be approved as written, and a copy of the agenda items is attached to the minutes. So can I get a motion and a second for that approval?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Julia. Julia, again, I'm forgetting, it's not Martin's.
It
Your
is
last
Martin's.
name. Oh, it's
Oh,
Martin's, okay.
yeah.
So moved by Martin's and second? Second by Livingston. All in favor, say aye, and Kim, please call the roll.
Caleb Anderson,
Aye.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Julia Martins,
Aye.
Charlotte Natardi,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. So our consent agenda is approved. Thank you for that. Next on our agenda, we have reports. And the first report we have is from our student school board reps. I know that Manny was unable to be here today. So Evan, my understanding is you're taking both of them.
Yeah, he definitely owes me big time. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So Manny wanted me to say that, I'm going to butcher this name, that under the new coach Cornelius Gillilen, I think I got that right, North Basketball is excited to start a new season, albeit definitely a bit odd. They're excited to hopefully get some success this year, get some good wins out. He also wanted me to mention that a lot of students recently have still been struggling a bit with mental health, things like feeling let down and feeling beat up, but he wanted to shout out the counselors who have been working really hard and been able and accessible for daily Zoom calls and stuff like that. Nordic skiing has also started up again for North. They're hoping, like basketball, for a successful season that, albeit, is very odd. And lastly, Tartan Knowledge Bowl and Quiz Bowl have both found success this season. We've actually played them multiple times in both Quiz Bowl tournaments and Knowledge Bowl meets, and they're always a fun match. So in that same vein, our Knowledge Bowl team, Tartan, the one I'm on, we're hoping to make another state run. Our other varsity team, they are also hoping to make a state run this year. They have been finding much success at the round robin meets as well, finishing second, third place right behind us, which has been very nice to see. Beyond that, I know Tartan hockey has started up. Recently played St. Thomas, and that game went better than you'd think for a school like St. Thomas. I know my brother is on the JV team, and they actually had a pretty close match. He was happy about that. They still lost, obviously, but he was pretty happy that they had a close match. Tartan Nordic Skiing is also starting up, and Tartan Theater is getting ready for their production of Alice in Wonderland. That's going to run at the end of February, I think from the 25th to the 28th, if I have my dates right.
All right, thanks, Evan. Anyone with questions or comments for Evan?
Evan, the Tartan Theater, is that the production going to be remote then, or how are they doing that?
No, they're going to be doing it following social distancing protocols. They're going to be wearing masks during the performance. I'm not sure if they're going to be getting like the clear masks, if you guys know what I'm talking about. They'll be doing that. I know they were able, their fall production, You on the Moors Now, they were able to do that outside because it was just at the end of the fall season, so it wasn't too cold yet. But yeah, they're going to be doing the play, and they're pretty strict about the guidelines they're following, but they're hoping that they'll be able to pull it off.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, anything else? Evan? No. If not, thanks as always, Evan. We always appreciate the student perspective. Thank you.
Of course, yeah.
Next on our agenda, we have student services, and I believe Tricia.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Superintendent Tucci Osorio and Board Chair Yenner, members of the board. I have this evening the pleasure of introducing both Heather Kozak, who is the program supervisor for our Next Step program, and Katie Bourne, who is our teacher over at Project Search. So they are here tonight just to share the awesomeness of that program and all the great things our students are doing. So I will turn it over to those two.
Great, thank you so much, Director St. Michaels. Thanks so much for having us, Chair Yanner, board members, and Superintendent Tucci Osorio. I'm excited today to talk about Project Search State of Minnesota. So what is Project Search? Basically, it is a 9-month internship program. We follow that traditional school year, but our focus is really developing competitive employment skills for our interns. So traditionally, pre-COVID, we would have 3 10-week internships. Our students would come 5 days a week to the Veterans Service Building on the Capitol grounds. We would have about 45 minutes of class, and then students would go off to their internship sites for 4 hours. The majority of their day was based on reporting to their supervisor, completing different tasks within the work setting that they were in, and really just being integrated into that day-to-day work setting. And the students that we have, those interns that we have within the program, are students with disabilities in their last year of school. So those students, when they are done, will get their high school diploma from their respective high schools. And so if we look at the history of where Project Search came from, in 1996 at the Cincinnati Children's Medical Center, Susie Rakowski and Aaron Reel recognized that there was a need for creating opportunities for individuals with disabilities and getting systematically trained in getting ready for the workforce. And so they started Project Search. So from 1996 to 2015, this program really took off throughout the United States and even internationally. Programs were developed in 49 states and beyond. And in 2015, the Project Search State of Minnesota was started. In 2019, North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale acquired Project Search State of Minnesota. Last year, we had 7 interns complete the program. And currently this year, we have 10 interns. We started our year at the Veterans Service Building on the Capitol grounds, and we're currently at the District Education Center. And those interns are being supported by myself as a Project Search instructor, and also 2 skills trainers, Ann Waugh and Christy Van Frost. And so really the overall goal of Project Search, and you'll see throughout here, these are all pictures of interns that we have from this year. So this is one of our interns working in the Veterans Service Building. But our goal is to get a job. And when I say a job, what I mean is working a job that is 16 or more hours a week. That job is going to be minimum wage or whatever is that competitive wage for that specific job type. It's going to be a non-seasonal job. So that person is going to be working throughout the year, and that person is going to be in an integrated setting. So really that person is going to be working in a business in their community with and without people with disabilities. And so when we think about what our typical intern looks like, we recruit throughout the metro area, but we really try and heavily recruit at the Next Step Transition program. There's been a lot of great interns that we've gotten from that program. Traditionally, Project Search has only has recognized the need to recruit individuals with developmental cognitive disabilities. But recently, particularly this year, both at a local level as well as a nationwide level, we've really recognized the need to open up our application process and our program to students who have other challenges. So our traditional intern had autism or developmental cognitive disability, but we're really recruiting this year and getting other students with other disabilities as well as other challenges such as poverty or homelessness. Each of our interns has a vocational rehabilitation services counselor. This is a state-funded program that's really working on supporting interns in finding and maintaining a job for the short term. And then many of our interns also have a county worker, and this person is really supporting that intern for the long term, potentially for the rest of their life, and supporting them in employment as well as independent living. And overall, the intern has to be motivated to work. And all of our interns recognize the freedom and independence and really responsibility that comes with having a job of their own and what it means to be an adult and work in their community. And they all recognize that that's really important for them as adults as they get ready to graduate. And so when we think about the project search model, it's not just us as a school district. We have a lot of people at the table. We always have the intern at the center of everything, but we really work with a lot of different partners. We have our host business, which is the state of Minnesota. They really work on supporting and creating opportunities for a classroom, as well as our internship sites. We have relationships with 16 different departments throughout the state of Minnesota, and each of those departments had 1 or 2 internships there, as well as a supervisor who would be supporting our interns on a day-to-day basis. We have our school district, which really is providing my job, as well as our skills trainers working with our interns on a day-to-day basis. We have vocational rehabilitation services, which is working with the families and interns throughout the year to really get to know them, so that when they do graduate and look for that job, they're not starting from, from not really knowing that intern. They've had that entire year to really recognize their skills and the potential of what they can do in the workforce. We also have a community partner, which works with that intern or that person who's graduated for the long term once they have that job. They're really working on job coach support and really making sure that the person is maintaining and being successful in the job. And then one of the most important players are our interns' family. We recognize we only have these interns for a year. It's a very short amount of time in that intern's life. And we really work on creating a respectful, supportive relationship with the families so that they know that they are supported and ready for once that intern graduates. And so part of our team, I asked some of our supervisors to go ahead and talk about their time with Project Search and what it's meant to them. So we'll give you a few minutes to go ahead and read what they said. Whenever you're ready, Josh. And finally, you get to see a little bit of what we've done this year. Again, all of these pictures are interns from this year. We did have the opportunity at the beginning of the year from September to the middle of November. We were on site at the Capitol grounds. We had 3 internship sites. So our first one is at the governor's office. We had 4 interns who were able to participate at this internship site doing a variety of tasks within the governor's office. We also had an internship with our grounds crew. We had 3 interns go through this internship doing those day-to-day tasks that are required to really maintain the Capitol grounds. And yeah, we had working in a variety of weather. It was great because in that short amount of time, we had fall, winter, and maybe even felt a little bit like spring sometimes. So they got the full gamut. And then lastly, we had our general maintenance worker in this time of COVID. Our cleaning and sanitizing skills are so crucial. And so these guys really got some great training in working at the Veterans Service Building and cleaning the offices and restrooms there, as well as the state office building. And to end today, I asked some of our interns to go ahead and talk about their time at Project Search. So I'll let you go ahead and hear from them, their experience.
I can think of 3 ways in which Project Search is different from my transition program. Number 1, at my transition program, you got to wear whatever you wanted as long as it was school appropriate. You could wear a t-shirt and shorts if it was warm enough outside. But at Project Search, you had to dress nicely and limit what you wear to the place. Number 2, at my transition program, you get transported from a selected high school by school bus. But at Project Search, you get transported from your home by a transportation van, except me. I get transported by my mom. Number 3, at my transition program, we get classes, advisory, and a 30-minute lunch where we're told when to be done with lunch. But at Project Search, we get internships, unless we don't have any, a time with the Veterans Service Building, or here, time walking through the tunnels, or outside, and a 30-minute lunch where we have to finish lunch on our own time.
My advice is to be open and try new internships. Be ready for the future to come after you leave Project Search.
My favorite part about Project Search is learning new job skills, figuring out what types of job is good fit for you. Less work, less classwork, and more hands-on work.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm not sure, did anyone see the picture? No, okay.
We can resend it afterwards too as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Katie. Anyone questions or comments for Katie? Or Heather? Or Tricia? I do. So I'm curious about the number of students who are participating, maybe in general and from 622. And then I'm also curious about your success goal, which was the 16 hours per week. How successful are you?
Yeah, great questions. So there are, I think as overall, since 2009, Project Search has been throughout Minnesota, and so 256 interns have participated and completed the program throughout the 9 different sites. And there's a 75% employment rate that is completed, which when we can contrast that between our general population of people with disabilities, it's about 19% of people with disabilities are employed based on the Department of Labor in 2019. If we think of last year, which was our year, we've had 2 out of 7 interns who are competitively employed, and a variety of reasons. Many of them are currently not wanting to pursue employment due to COVID. And that's kind of the hiccup right now that we have, but those are our stats.
Wow, that's great. You said normally it would be 19%, but this program gets you at 75%. So.
Yes, so the Department of Labor, for people who report to have a disability, 19% have a rate of employment. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Michelle, can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say that my son went through the Next Step program, and he's one of those statistics that actually did well after going through the program. He's gainfully employed right now. And he last year purchased his own townhouse. And so it's you know, and he's a graduate of the Next Step program.
That's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks to Katie and Heather and Tricia for all this incredible work that you invest in our students. It's just amazing.
Chair Yenner, may I replay the video? It's only 1 minute and 38 seconds. It was on my screen. I apologize for not being able to see the video. Is it okay if I replay it so everyone can see it?
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks.
I can think of 3 ways in which Project Search is different from my transition program. Number 1, at my transition program, you got to wear whatever you wanted as long as it was school appropriate. You could wear a t-shirt and shorts if it was warm enough outside. But at Project Search, you had to dress nicely and limit what you wear to the place. Number 2, at my transition program, you get transported from a selected high school by school bus. But at Project Search, you get transported from your home by a transportation van, except me. I get transported by my mom. Number 3, at my transition program, we get classes, advisory, and a 30-minute lunch where we're told when to be done with lunch. But at Project Search, we get internships, unless we don't have any. Time with the Veterans Service Building, or here, time walking through the tunnels or outside, and a 30-minute lunch where we have to finish lunch on our own time.
My advice is to be open and try new internships. Be ready for the future to come after you leave Project Search.
My favorite part about Project Search is learning new jobs, though. Figuring out what types of job is good fit for you. Less work, less classwork, and more hands-on work.
All right, thanks, Josh. All right, anyone else? Comments, questions? Okay, if not, then thanks very much, you guys. Thanks for this work. It's great, and thanks for coming to share it with us.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Next on our agenda, Superintendent Tucci Osorio.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Chair Yenner, directors of the board. Before I begin with my other reports, I just want to take a quick moment to introduce the newest member of our cabinet team here. I've got Amy Lee Yang with us this evening, and she's only able to stay with us for a minute or two because she's got another meeting at 6:30. She no longer she doesn't work with us quite yet, so she's still employed in another place. But let me just tell you a little bit about Amy Lee. She comes to us with over 15 years of HR experience, of which 10 of those have been in public school systems, including Osseo and St. Paul schools. Most recently, she's been serving as the labor relations manager for St. Paul schools. She's had a lot of different hats within the HR world. She holds a bachelor's degree in human resource management and a master's degree in organizational leadership. She's a true champion for racial equity, diversity, inclusion, and she's really passionate about developing positive employee relations while supporting the needs of diverse student populations. She's a strong believer in lifelong education and the impact of strong public schools on the future of our learners. So please join me in welcoming Miss Amy Lee Yang. She will start with us officially on Monday, next Monday, February 1st. And we're just super thrilled to have her be joining our team to lead our human resources department. So with that, Amy Lee, I know you got a buzz to another meeting. Would you like to just say a couple of words?
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. I definitely look forward to working with all of you. I'm trying to wind down my things over at St. Paul Public Schools, but I'm excited to join with St. Paul Maplewood Oakdale starting Monday. So more of these meetings to come.
You'll get to know Amy Lee very well because, as you know, our HR director is usually a part of all board meetings. So any questions for Amy Lee at all before we let her disappear into our other meeting?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I look forward to seeing you all again.
We are very much looking forward to Monday, having you on our team. Thank you, Amy Lee.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a good evening.
I will tell you, just as when we were doing our search for a new HR director, out of the woodwork, there were so many people who came to me saying, you have to hire Amy Lee Yang. And so it's amazing how serendipitous that sort of felt, but there was definitely a lot of recommendations coming my way about her from many different people in different districts even who had worked with her previously. So we're really thrilled about that. With that, I think I'll just jump right into my COVID update for tonight. For our board members, some of this will be familiar from our work study session that we recently had. Let me share my screen and get started here. So with regard to our COVID update, I always like to begin with kind of our latest data points. You'll recall that this was the original guideline that the state gave us regarding county level COVID numbers. And as you recall, in order to bring elementary back or secondary back in person, the guideline is that we need to be less than 10 cases per 14-day case rate. If we want to bring secondary back in hybrid, less than 20. Now, I say this because, or I'm sorry, less than 30. I say this because the rules have changed a little bit regarding elementary. The state has now said elementary can come back irregardless of these numbers because there's some new data that has emerged about elementary children, in particular younger people, not having as strong ability to transmit the virus at all. So when we look at this data, we're really looking at it now through the lens of secondary schools. And so as you can see, our numbers have been dropping. We really hit a high right before that Thanksgiving break, and we've been slowly declining since, which is just wonderful news. And we're excited about that. So another data, this is the official data that's got a 2-week lag to it. This is the official data from the Minnesota Department of Health. So we also look at this dashboard that's been put together by a professor at the University of Minnesota, which actually looks at real-time data. So the blue triangles, of course, are the last official report that came out of MDH. And then these dots are real-time data points since the black ones. And the purple is what they think is going to happen in the coming week ahead. So this is Ramsey County, and this is Washington County. And you can see at Ramsey County, they're predicting will be under 30. Washington County, not quite there yet. But as you know, we're in both counties, and the state guidance has always said that if you're in 2 counties or more, that you should take the county with the highest data point and go that to be most conservative. I wanted to just kind of go back over our latest transition plans in place for elementary. We've had a lot of work that has gone into getting elementary ready to come back in person. One of the nice things about elementary level is that we have most teachers share a same licensure. So we could sort teachers and class lists into, these are the teachers that are going to teach only distance learning students, and these are the students that are going to work only with the in-person students. So as you can see, we began with our grades pre-K to 2, came back fully in person yesterday. Really amazing transition back. Hiccups, of course, felt a little bit like the first day of school, but just really, really positive energy. And then grades 3 to 5 will be coming back February 8th. Now, as part of the state guidance, when we do change learning models, we are allotted a few school days, up to 5 per year actually, for teachers to have as a planning day with no students in the building to prepare for those transitions between models. In elementary, we opted to spread those planning days out just a little bit so that we could use the time in a few different ways to help teachers get ready. You know, we talked about this a lot. There's been incredible amount of work that's gone into getting ready for this. Lots of PPE. The guidance from the state originally said all staff must wear a mask and a face shield at all times. They've recently adjusted that to say it's recommended to wear both, but it's not a requirement to wear both at all times. So for staff, if they are going to wear both, oh, I realize there's a typo there. Sorry about that. But if they don't wear, if they're going to be around another adult, would be the most important time for them to wear the mask and the face shield, because really at this point with the elementary schools, the biggest concern relates to staff, adult to adult transmission. We have gone way above and beyond and purchased air purifiers for all classrooms. These air purifiers clean a space of 750 square feet. We've got all kinds of, we stretched out the bus routes so that we could have time to clean the buses between routes. We now, as you know, have bi-weekly online testing on site for all staff. So staff who want to get tested for COVID can do so right at school every 2 weeks. They are not required to, but we are offering that. We've also organized shifts for spreading out breakfast and lunch. Breakfast is a grab and go where staff will take their lunch to the students will take it to their classroom. And we've also invested in these portable plexiglass shields that staff can, especially staff, for example, a paraprofessional who might go to different classrooms, has a plexiglass shield they can carry with them and use whenever they have to get close with students. Couple of the challenges, pressure points we've been experiencing with elementary. Probably one of the greatest pressure points was having to reassign class lists. When we knew that we were coming back, we did ask our families to decide if they were going to stay in distance learning or if they were going to choose to come back. Because there were enough families that made a change in their original decision from the fall, we did have to re-roster some students into classes that were different than they had been with already. And that was a little challenging. I think everybody gets, everybody wants a little comfort and predictability, and that's been a little bit of a challenge, but my goodness, has everybody been flexible. It's been amazing. Obviously we had to reroute bus school start and school end times and all of that, and figure out who was going to cover the online and the in-person classes. Now, secondary planning, some of the things that we've had to consider, I want to say this. Many have asked, what's happening with secondary planning? When are we going to bring them back? So there's a couple considerations that we have to figure out. First of all, the state guidance that originally came out said you can only bring back 3 grade levels at a time. So that's why we brought K2 and then have to wait 2 weeks before we could bring back 3-5. Even with that plan, waiting 2 weeks between grade bands, it would take a while to get up to high school, of course. The problem is if we were to start considering bringing our secondary back, mid-February, they're fairly close to the end of the trimester, and it's really hard to re-roster and figure out whole new schedules for people when they're in the middle of their trimester planning. So we're trying to figure all those things out. Unlike elementary, where all the staff share the same licensure, it's very difficult to staff, particularly a high school, when you have a certain number of students who stay online and are working from home and a number that are in person, because those teachers, we only have a certain number of teachers in specific licensure areas to teach in both those worlds. You might think, well, okay, have the teachers live stream from their classroom out to the kids at home. The state guideline says we cannot force teachers to do that. They can't be required to teach both in person and kids at home at the same time. So we have to figure out a way to schedule that time. Another piece that makes our district different from other districts is that up till now, we've had far greater numbers of students choosing online only classes. Now we're about to send out another survey to families, secondary families, just to get a sense if that number will change, and hopefully it will. It would make it more manageable to be able to have our more students in person and fewer online, because it's really difficult for our teachers to have to teach in both those worlds at the same time. So we're working on that. There's another couple things that definitely are on the horizon: prom and graduation, of course. I've been in texting chat groups with many superintendents this past week and even this morning. Very few have any decisions made about that, but I wanted to address, because we did have a public comment related to that. We have every intention of having an in-person graduation this year. We've been exploring what it would take to do that in our football fields. As you know, we have artificial turf in our fields. So Randy and his team are looking into what it would take to protect those, because apparently if you just put folding chairs out in a football field that's got artificial turf, you could really cause damage to that artificial turf. So we're looking into what kind of protection would have to go down if we were going to do that. Of course, if you do an outdoor graduation, you would have to have a rain date. But we're definitely exploring all of these options right now. We have a very high priority of being able to offer an in-person graduation. The same is true for prom. Our high school leaders are really trying to think of creative ways to do that. Questions are coming up, right? Because families want to know, do we buy the dress? Do we buy the whatever, all the things? And we're talking about, for sure we can figure out a way to do a grand march with the prom. How we organize some sort of an activity. We've explored the idea of getting giant tents, or what can we do to help provide a safe environment. But one of the greatest challenges, of course, is keeping kids socially distanced from each other. And that is not easy. As you well know, when you're dealing with teenagers, it's not always easy to keep them socially distanced from each other, especially in a social setting like that. Couple things I want to talk about: the vaccine rollout. So the state gave us a guidance, and these are both linked in here. I won't read them all to you, but we, just last week, we got our first dose of vaccine allocated specifically for our school district. Now we have 1,700 employees. And last week, for the first time, we got 25 doses allocated to us. So what's really important for us is to figure out, okay, if we're given doses, how do we prioritize who gets them first? So I wanted to share a real quick review with you of how we're thinking about all of this. And it's largely based on the recommendations from the state. But additionally, we've been working with our neighboring school districts so that our prioritization lists look the same or very similar within our district and neighboring school districts. So we've started with, for example, center-based staff. That means staff who are working with students with special needs, particularly students who might have an intolerance for wearing masks, students who might need toileting and feeding needs such as that. Starting with those students, with the staff who are working with that group of students, not only birth all the way up through age 21, including Next Step, who you just saw a report from their program. Then we're looking at staff, and when I say staff, it's not just teachers, it's staff, paraprofessionals, and childcare, anybody working with students who are 65 and older. We also prioritize staff of color. That question came up, why would we do that? Well, there's a lot of data about how COVID disproportionately affects people of color. And in fact, our state guidance also recommended that we consider that as a factor. Students or staff in special education, remaining adventure connection, bus drivers, monitors, early childhood, and down the line. I won't read these all to you, but we started with those who have most exposure to students, particularly those who are least tolerant of wearing a mask. And we worked our way back to those who have the least exposure directly to students. And as you can see, we were very clear that at the end of the list would be our cabinet, our superintendent, myself, and our school board, because we wanted our staff to see this list. Now, within each of these bullets, there's going to be tiny little subcategories. For example, when we talk about school-based staff that are working in schools, right? We get to all the rest of the teachers working in staff that aren't in part of these other categories. Within that, we might take, for example, in an elementary school, the music, the PE, and STEM teachers before the grade level classroom teachers, because those are teachers that see all different cohorts of students during the day, right? So inside of these areas, there's going to be some sub bullets as well, but we're trying to be very transparent and open about that so that people don't feel like we're hiding any information or making decisions based on any biased reasons whatsoever. And I've been very clear, there's no way I will be getting a vaccine until everybody else has it first, because obviously we have to think about who's on the front lines with students every day and who has the opportunity to, have the opportunity to socially distance in any way during their day. So with that,
Christine?
I'll answer any questions you have. Yes.
So relative to age, in other words, our older employees, is there a way to move up some of the older employees, or how does that figure in?
Tell me more what you mean. Move up?
Those that are 65 and older, do they, and they're down on your list of priorities, do they move up because of their age or no?
Actually, they're very high up. The only people really ahead of them are those working in center-based where students are unmasked and they're very, very exposed. So they're actually our top group, one of our top groups. Additionally, I forgot to mention, we got as you saw from my email today, we got notification yesterday that our district's being allocated additional 542 doses.
Oh,
so
good.
that took care of many, many, many groups on this list already. We have 1,700 employees overall. Mm-hmm. Now, last week we got 25 doses. Yesterday we got 542, of which we still are in the process of identifying the staff who are going to get them, because we didn't get the specific email that tells them what to do until just before this meeting started. We were able to send that out. So we're running really, really tight lists, because if somebody says, hey, I don't want the vaccine, then we move to somebody else and offer that slot to them, because we don't want to lose any slots. And we have absolutely no idea if this pace will continue or if this pace is going to, slow down and this is just one surge we got, or we just have no idea what to expect. So we're trying to be very, very organized about who's next on our lists.
And Christine, I know they've opened at Roy Wilkins Auditorium, they opened a site for teachers, they said. So how does that figure into this?
That's where they're going for the 542 that we got. That's where they go. And it's not just for teachers. It's all educators and childcare workers, people who work in education and childcare.
Oh, I see. That's where they go for the shots. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure about that. Mm-hmm.
Can you estimate how far down on your checklist we can go with the extra 500 some shots as far as the checklist of people?
I can pull that right back up. Hang on. Let me go back. Oh, I got to share my screen again. One moment here. Get back to my Zoom. I feel like it's easier if I just show you. And I'm not sure. Okay, so I know that with regard to this list, and I'd have to double check. Trisha's been managing it because she and Alicia work together on this. We've definitely finished, and we're working on getting this so we can check the boxes so people can actually see. But center-based staff, 65 and older, staff of color, special education staff, for sure. I think we for sure are through all of those, and I believe we're into the Adventure Connection staff. So we're getting ready to be able to include drivers and monitors. Now, mind you, if you're a bus driver who is 65, you already would have been included previously, right? So the only thing ahead of, to the point you made, Nancy, the only people ahead of 65 and older are those working in center-based special ed where that's really intense special ed programs. So 65 and older is right under that group, right? So, but we did say school instructional support, because there are some folks who are working entirely in distance learning, and they may be over 65, but they're not in any contact with students right now because they're only supporting our distance learning program. So they're not actually getting vaccinated quite yet, because we're trying to work with all the people who work in person first.
Okay, and then am I seeing accommodation for those with underlying medical conditions, or is that part of?
Yeah, actually, and that was actually a conversation. We didn't have it separately listed here, but we are working through also those that have medical conditions. Now, part of the challenge with that is not everybody tells you they have a medical condition. It's not like right now the data we're working with is we are sifting and sorting our data in our employee database. So somebody has, for example, diabetes or asthma, they're under no obligation to tell us they have those conditions. So it's a little tricky to have that be a category, because if we don't actually have a database that tells us everybody's health conditions, right?
Okay.
So it's not listed here, but it's definitely been something we've been working with. In particular, staff that we know are on a medical accommodation that's been documented and verified with us, and we can get them into any of these slots. We're working on it.
Okay.
It's sort of like drinking from a fire hose. One thing that's been happening around the metro is I've talked to many superintendents who've gotten a call like 7 o'clock at night from a local vaccine center. And unfortunately, until this upcoming opening at the Roy Wilkins Auditorium at Excel, the closest ones to us are in Anoka County. And I have talked to several superintendents who've gotten a call at 7 o'clock at night saying, hey, we got 50 doses left. Who can you get here in the next 20 minutes? Because these vaccines are going to expire. Well, they've only been calling the people who are physically closest to those centers, which is really unfortunate, because in the East Metro, none of us have gotten those bonus calls at night. But I have talked to several superintendents who've gotten those calls and had to scramble to get people over there and race to get them in there. So, and I talked to another superintendent in a different district who almost all their staff have been vaccinated because the county had extra doses and called them up and gave it to that school district. And we've tried to do the same with our Washington and Ramsey County, and they've told us they don't have extra doses to give us. So we're reliant on when the state says we can have them as educational allocation. So it's very hodgepodge, I'll tell you, all over the place. It's not an even distribution. And what we've learned is we have to act fast and push hard to get our slots in and make sure people like sign up immediately. We had an email that went out at 6 o'clock tonight, and I said, send it at 5:59. We were told we couldn't send it before 6. Because it's sort of a first come, first serve, even if you are identified as someone in that batch. So yeah, it feels a little bit like the Hunger Games or something we're in right now. I mean, it's crazy how much we're all trying to race the clock to try to get our slots and our doses in there.
And when you say that you have to act fast and push hard, that's to get them to the Roy Wilkins site.
So here's an example. Last Monday, which was Martin Luther King holiday, Monday morning, we had at 8 a.m. All of a sudden, we got this notification in our emails late Sunday night, emergency call with all the superintendents in the state. 8 a.m. Monday morning, which mind you was a holiday, we're on this call and they said, okay, you're all going to start getting some allocations of doses. And shortly after the call, and they told us, that's when we found out we had 25 doses. I got an email. They told us, identify those people, but you can't tell them about it before 2 p.m. because the governor's having a press conference at 2 p.m. and you can't let the cat out of the bag. But on that same day, we had to have the people online registered and signed up for their vaccine appointment before midnight that same day. And mind you, it was a holiday. So somebody could be out in the woods somewhere camping. I mean, and they were on our list, or they would lose their slot. So we had to scramble to, track down phone numbers, cell phone numbers, and whoever we could get a hold of to tell people, hey, you're the first 25 on our list. Please make sure you register by midnight. And we couldn't register for them. They had to do it themselves, following a unique link that they were given. And then we were not aware right away of those people, how many declined to get the vaccine. And so they told us they would send us an email if any of our folks who were signed up declined to get it. And we still haven't gotten any email about it, but we know there were a few who didn't. So then other districts started sending more people than what they were allotted, knowing somebody's going to say no, thank you. And then people got called out for doing that too. So it's a tricky mess. I'll be honest.
It's not a situation where, if you go down there to Roy Wilkins without an appointment, they just turn you away.
Absolutely. Right? Nobody can, you cannot do that. Absolutely.
Right. So you're online, register online and so on.
Yeah, Charlotte.
Christine, is there a way you can have individuals who don't see themselves on that list, but have a pre-existing condition to self-identify? Maybe you can have it on the list that if you have a condition, please let us know so that they can move up the list. Because those, as you said, those individuals don't usually if they have diabetes or whatever, they don't self-identify. And wouldn't that be a good way? And I don't know if they'll have to show that they have medical records. I don't know how you'll be able.
They would have to have a doctor's note and they would have to prove it. And some of that takes a little bit of time. And right now we're sort of having to go fast. I'll say this, we have a number of staff who have put in for accommodations so that, and with doctor's note already. And by the way, that number is close to 200 people. And we already have them on a list that we've identified as people who are at risk with medical conditions that have been documented already for us. So yeah. And certainly, people are coming forward, but one of the conditions is obesity, right? I mean, many of us are overweight and it gets a little tricky as to which conditions you prioritize over others. So, you know what I'm saying?
Christine, I have a question. So on your priority list, you have all of these subgroups. So is the goal to get everyone through this first dose? Because obviously within 21 days or a couple weeks, they have to have the second dose. So is everyone on that list going to have that first dose and then we start? Because otherwise, that can get pretty tricky too. Is there a plan?
The state has assured us that they will have a second dose for whoever we send for the first dose. Okay. So we will get a notification. They will actually have, by the time someone has their own first dose, the state will then have their name on a list of someone who's already gotten it, and they will be alerted by them when they're to come get their second dose. But yeah, that's what we've been told. If this pace keeps up, we could have everybody vaccinated quickly. If we get another batch of doses like this, it's been amazing how many we've been able to get through.
So real quick, Mrs. Story, before I head out, I just wanted to pop in an idea that I've had about graduation. Mm-hmm. You guys were talking about the football field, and I'm not sure, because I know our graduating class, I think it's about 390 something. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure, I mean, we'd obviously have to adequately space out every single student, because it's not like we can have, people are going to want to graduate together and stuff like that. But if we don't have the room for students and families to sort of sit together in pods or whatnot, mm-hmm. An idea that came to me was that I remember in the past, our band concerts have been live streamed and filmed for public access. Mm-hmm. So maybe we could do something like that where we get that same, I can't remember the channel, but we get that same crew and then we have a video, an option for especially people who are immunocompromised or grandmas and grandpas to watch the graduation on public access.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we definitely would work to have it live streamed, even if even in a normal year, you get a certain number of tickets per student and then others don't get to come anyway. So we try to have a recording of it later for people to watch. And that usually runs on public access too, but we can certainly try to have it live streamed. Yeah, absolutely.
That sounds awesome. I think that'll be, mm-hmm. I think that could be a good idea to move forward with. And hearing you say the asthma, that made me happy that maybe instead of getting my vaccine in July, I could get it in June or something like that, because I know I'm pretty far down. I think the one thing that's might be bumping me up from last place to second to last on the priority list is that I have asthma. So, yeah, here's hoping.
Mm-hmm. And I hope that by then we'll have the herd immunity and we'll be able to have outdoor activities.
Mm-hmm. They do say that, with every round of vaccines, it helps a little bit, right? Reduce
I-
the transmission. And even if it takes a while to get through everybody, every round will make a difference. So that's good to know.
I think I've read that I think it has to be somewhere between 70 and 80% of a population for adequate herd immunity.
Yeah. Yep. But I do want to revisit the idea of secondary return, because obviously that's a big pressing issue and we're going to get a lot of comments about it. I did an informal survey of our neighboring districts. We have our text conversations just this morning to say, all right, where's everybody at? Most districts are very much in our space of trying to figure that out. One of the key issues we're facing is that as of right now, the state has not changed their guidance on secondary. We have to use the guidance that comes from the county data as a major point of our decision-making process. The other thing that's been happening is regional support teams around the metro have been giving very different answers to different districts when they ask the questions. So we're always comparing notes with each other. Many of our neighboring districts are really looking along that same timeline of bringing students back when we have a trimester break, because it's so hard to re-roster and redo the schedule when they're not yet when they're in the middle of the trimester. But you know, if we could get everybody vaccinated, it's a staff vaccination we're talking about, of course, because these vaccinations don't include all of our students, but staff vaccinations. You know, if we can keep going at the rate we're going and get everybody vaccinated, one of the things that makes it hard to open is if we're short staffed, because people are out on quarantine or they're not able to be there in person. So we definitely are working toward getting kids back at the trimester break. We just don't know yet if that's going to look like a hybrid model, or if we could, my goodness, if some things change dramatically, I would love to bring us back full days, everybody, right? And then the other main question is how many students are going to choose for distance learning only, and how do we staff that? So there's a lot that's going to happen in the month of February. We are going to begin with a survey that's going to come out by the end of this week, beginning of next week. That's going to at least get a sense from our secondary families where they're all at. But we also want to make sure to give them hope that we are working towards this. And our data is still a little bit high for secondary to return, but we definitely are working toward getting there. And I know our principals at secondary are working through lots of different possible schedule options to figure out how to make this possibly work. But if we have to socially distance our students 6 feet apart at secondary, there's just no way you can bring them all back together. If we do a hybrid model, we have talked about making sure that it is definitely, to the extent possible, a longer day and more time in school than less. At least get it up to a couple of days if we had to do hybrid. But again, it's going to come down a little bit to how do we support those kids who are learning from home. And like I said before, District 622 is very different than Stillwater, Matamidi, South Wash, White Bear Lake in terms of the number of our students who have been choosing distance learning only. So if that number can drop significantly, it will make it a lot easier for us to staff both programs. So we should know a lot more in the next few weeks about what the data shows from our families as we get this information out and collect it back from them.
Those 500 shots that we were talking about that we picked up yesterday or today, that would not cover all of our elementary teachers. We're not there yet, right?
No,
we would
we're
need
not there
another
yet.
batch. Okay. Another question too, I'm reminded of late September, early October, when we were looking at transitioning secondary into the hybrid model. And there was a lot of push and pull as far as what kind of system, what kind of setups we're going to have. Are you anticipating something like that happening again when we move secondary back to in person, or are we ready to? I know our protocol for COVID has been really sharp, and it keeps getting better and better. That slide you had where you just threw up all the data up there about the things that we're doing to make, literally our schools are safer than it is outside in the general public. We have that set up, but I have a sneaking suspicion that there will probably be some hiccups in there. Is there anything we can anticipate to kind of cover and discuss right now, so that it doesn't become like a big, so it doesn't blow up on our face when we do make the move to open up again.
So there's a couple things I can say to that, and it's a really great point you're bringing up, Ben. A couple things that I will say. One, we know a lot more than we did now than we did in the beginning of the school year. We're planning this with more lead time. You know, at the beginning of the school year, it was kind of like school started. We had a few weeks to learn how to do distance, and then we had to jump to hybrid, and that was really, really stressful, right? And that was because we'd only done distance for a matter of a few weeks. And that was obviously that was a big piece of all of this, was a change. Now our teachers have been doing distance and they've also done hybrid. So neither of those are new models for them. They have done them now. They have had some time in their classrooms to set up, and they have experienced these situations. So I think there's a huge factor there that our teachers are not new to either of those models right now. That's huge, because the anxiety was so high to try to teach in ways you hadn't ever done before. And of course, you've been gone, it's summer break, all of a sudden you're back, you have a few weeks, boom, you got to be ready and you're on, right? Now we've had more time to get ready for that, and that's made a big difference. The second thing is, we're not trying to make a change in a matter of a couple weeks, right? That's part of the reason we're also looking ahead to the trimester break. And one of the things that came about with the governor's order is that you can only bring in 3 grade bands, wait 2 weeks, bring in the next 3 grades, wait a couple weeks. So even if we wanted to try to just rush it and bring people back, we're not even allowed to do that. But that also forces us to have time to plan. So the idea by doing a survey and getting that out right now before the end of January, knowing that we have, over a month before we're going to actually make any move with it, that'll give us some lead time and some good data to help us figure out, okay, if it comes back 30% of our kids are going to do distance learning instead of 55, well, that will feel different, right? I think that's a key data point we have to know before we can figure out what the schedules will look like. So I do think this round will go better. We also know that at the trimester break, we've had the opportunity to, the state has allocated several days we can take for planning time when we're transitioning between models. And we didn't use any of those at the beginning of the year for secondary because we'd already had like the whole opening week to get ready for that. But when we look at transitioning back, just like we did at elementary, we're going to have some planning days woven in where they can also have no instructional duties assigned to them, and they can get their classroom set up and figure out what their new schedule and routines are going to look like. That's going to add a bit of predictability and calm for them as well. What I'd like to do is get us in a place where we can publish a plan, say this is where we're headed, and if by early February we can say, here's the plan, this is what's going to happen by this date. If the data doesn't change, or if we have to have a little exit clause in case there's a major change in the recommendations from the state. But I want to get something out there early enough that people can have a month lead time saying, okay. The other thing I've heard from families, and I spent a good long time on the phone with a couple different parents today, just knowing there's hope that you're going to get to come back to school. There's a lot of folks who think we're never coming back this year, right? And they're seniors in high school, and I've said, oh no, I think we're absolutely coming back. It's because, especially if the vaccine rate continues and we can continue getting our staff vaccinated, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to get people back. What it looks like, we're still having to figure out. And part of that depends on the number of families that choose distance learning versus in person. So I do think, I have no doubt there'll be some glitches, Ben, and I think it's a great question, but I feel like we have our eyes wide open and our staff have so much more experience than they did before. The anxiety isn't going to be quite as high. And also just knowing, my goodness, if we get another notice like this of that many doses of vaccine, we could really, really make progress on vaccinating instructional staff pretty quickly. So we're really going to keep pushing for that. And I think that would really cause a huge reduction in anxiety for us.
Christine, so over this last year, it's been almost a year since we started this whole pandemic, and I don't even want to think about how some of the experiences that our families and children have gone through. You've done, you've sent out surveys throughout the year. Are you able to predict what kind of response you're gonna get, like for, are you able to predict the trend, and are parents maybe going to go towards in person, or maybe, you know, like you, by now, you know the trends, right? Based on the work you've done in the past.
So we have one good indicator right now, because in the past, in the fall, when we did students in distance learning and hybrid, we were close to 50% at elementary and over 50% distance learning at secondary. When we came back with elementary just now, this month, or just actually beginning yesterday, actually, we dropped to 30% in distance learning. So we saw a good number come back to school. If I were to predict, I would guess we probably would see some kind of a trend similar to that when our secondary families have that same option coming up. So that would be my guess. But I'll say this, some of our neighboring districts, you know, back even in the fall, in the worst of our times with COVID, you know, Matamidi never had more than 14% of their students choosing distance learning. So our data mirrors much more our school districts look like ours, that have the diversity that ours has. And what we're finding is highly more diverse school districts have many more families choosing distance learning only. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One of which is that COVID, you know, disproportionately impacts families and communities of color. And I think there's definitely an awareness out there in the community about that.
Christine, at the state level, there's a lot of talk about summer school and about it being a, you know, recovery opportunity for students, and not a punishment, you know. But and I think you've talked about how you're planning for an expanded summer school, and of course, I don't know, the burnout among staff must be so, you know, high. Do they want to teach in summer school? I mean, you know, after all of this, I don't know. I mean, I was talking to an art teacher who, I mean, you know, 154 students, and she made like individual paper bags with, you know, art supplies, and 150, you know, for each student. I mean, the planning that they have to do, you know, I mean, they used to just go in a classroom and teach. Now it's, you know, they have to dazzle with video and clips and interactive and who knows what. And then they have to do it all again the next day. So, I mean, you know, what do you think about summer school? And is it?
So we just had a meeting this morning about it, very robust. Our summer school plans are far more robust and expansive than ever before. I actually don't think we'll have a problem staffing it. There are so many staff who are looking forward to in-person contact with kids again. I think there's a lot of folks who are tired of the screen time for sure. But I think there's so many teachers, like even right now, when we look at the teachers and the kids just yesterday and today, what a joy it's been to have people going, oh my gosh, I finally can teach again. You know, I don't feel like after people have been cooped up in their homes for a year, I don't see there's going to be a huge problem staffing summer school, because it's extra money for teachers who participate in it. And they finally get to go back to actually interacting with kids. I'll say this too, we're very intentional that summer program is not a drudgery. It is fun, it's campy, it's a place you want to be, because if you don't make it that way, kids don't want to come to it. And that goes for all ages. We are actually looking at adding some really cool extra programs this summer, a particular camp program for American Indian students, for example. We're expanding our freedom schools, you know, extensively. We're including middle school this year, which we hadn't done in the past. So we've got a lot of great ideas underway, and we're going to try to maximize our entire summer. We just had a meeting this morning to kind of map out where can we hold summer programming that's not in the way of construction. So we just actually had Randy and I, we were in our meeting this morning talking about all that. So we're well underway with it, and it's pretty exciting actually.
Christine, I wanted to speak to the in-person learning too. I'm super happy that the elementaries are going back this week. I have an elementary son. I'm a little disappointed about the delay. Instead of kind of hitting the ground the first day that we can return, we do have this delay. I wish we could have had the delay when the kids were in hybrid rather than when they have the full in-person days. I also wish those planning days occurred during the distance learning rather than during the in-person days, because I feel like that's our most valuable learning time and we're losing that to.
Hang on though, the planning days did occur during the distance learning days, except for the one.
Well, we have another one coming up.
That's that's for the 3rd through 5th grade teachers. You're right.
But I believe we could have started on the 14th or something. Anyway, I'm not in love with that portion of the plan, and I hope that when we transition to secondary that we eliminate those delays as much as possible and that the planning days occur when the students are distanced rather than when the students are in, supposed to be in full-time learning. I'm super happy about the vaccines. We have almost 600 doses in the 2 weeks, and with 1,700 staff, it would only take a couple more weeks to vaccinate everyone if we kept getting doses at that rate. So that's exciting, and I am kind of curious. I'll ask you in a second, Christine, if anyone's declining the vaccine, if any of our staff are choosing not to be vaccinated. I'm also excited about the COVID county numbers, and I'm just curious a little bit. It was this afternoon, but it wasn't that long ago that there was a study in several newspapers that showed that CDC scientists did a study of over 90,000 students in North Carolina and found only 32 infections and 0 cases of transmission from students and staff. And again, this is the CDC. So these are the folks who are supposed to be studying this. So with that kind of result, I think that will trickle down to our state departments of health, and hopefully we'll start to change some of that guidance because, if you Google after the meeting, that study's pretty clear that schools are not transmitting, are not drivers of transmission. So anyway, I think all this is good momentum for in-person learning, and I do know that distance learning is working for some families, but I do know that it's extremely painful for other families, and for those families, I want to advocate for that in-person learning, and I know we're moving in that direction. I think hybrid is not a great solution and has not been super successful. So to the extent possible, I would like to see us go to in-person learning, and then again, just eliminate those transition times so that we don't eat into the trimester. If we are delaying until next trimester, at least let's hit the ground running and not continue to lose learning time. I know that we're kind of united as far as, yes, we want to get this done, but I just feel like families are consistently telling me that this feels it feels more urgent to them than sometimes we let them feel, I guess.
Okay. If I could just respond to a couple things. So you are right that the initial date that schools were allowed to be open would have been January 19th, because MLK was the 18th, right? So the 19th. And so we waited, that was a 4-day week, and we waited till the next week. The reason that here's the problem. If we had put all the planning days earlier, one of the issues is when the staff we shut down Seesaw, re-roster all the teachers, and you have new class lists, right? One of the reasons there has to be grades 3, 4, 5, right? Grades 3, 4, and 5 don't get to start in person until February 9th, right? Or 8th, right?
Yeah.
The reason we had to have a planning day before that, if we gave those teachers their planning time before, like 3 weeks earlier before like if I'm a third, fourth, and fifth grade teacher and I get my planning time several weeks before I'm actually going to make the transition, I don't have my new class list. I don't have my new rostered list. And I don't have the ability in Seesaw to set up my lessons because my class list just changed. Does that make sense? So part of it was the transition had to happen in a way that the teachers had a planning day to actually use the data or of the switched over class list to actually prepare. Okay. So that's part of the reason that that happened. Now, we could have perhaps kept grades K2 going and had theirs earlier, but then we had a big discussion about to have an elementary group of kids separated on different days when siblings typically get on the bus together. We didn't feel like it made a lot of sense to separate the days for those little guys and their families, to have different planning days for those teachers, right? So does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, but kind of when you say that makes me feel like, and it will happen for secondary.
Well, no, because secondary, the schools are already, so grades, a middle school is 3 grades. We don't have different grade bands in a side of a middle school that would start at the same time. Does that make sense? Middle school is a 3 grade band in and of themselves.
Yeah.
So that I don't see that as an issue. The problem is in an elementary school, pre-K to 5th grade has a lot more grades than 3 grades, right? And now high school, it is an issue. However, what a lot of people do is they bring back 9, 10, 11, and they just delay something for seniors, right? So it's less of an issue in a school where you only have 3 grades, or in this case, 4, right? So it really is a unique problem to elementary in that regard. The second thing I want to say is we had the choice in elementary to come back in hybrid or to come back all full in person. We had many, many go rounds, and I invited you to one of those meetings, Michelle, with all the elementary staff to talk about that. And they had a choice to come back in hybrid right away or to come back full in person. And after much negotiation with the teachers group and all of that, we agreed that by delaying the start 1 week, they would agree to come back full in person and not hybrid. And that was a compromise we made so that we could get everybody back full. There was a real concern about going from full distance to full in person. And by having an extra week to plan and organize for that, they felt a lot more comfortable about doing that. So you're right. That was a negotiation we made with our teacher union. But I will tell you, in the end, we got all of the elementary kids back and not hybrid, right? So, and that it took you a monumental amount of reshuffling of class lists to try to cover the kids who are still in distance learning. Now, when we think about secondary, I want to just put something out there. Our preference absolutely is all day, every day, all the kids come back. So to advocate for or against it, I totally understand it. There's nothing saying we wouldn't, but if the state is telling us we still have to have 6 feet of social distancing, we can't have 1,600 kids in a high school. And that's what we're trying to get clarity from them about. We absolutely are willing to do that. But if the state guidance says you still have to put 6 feet, there's just not a way to do that. And so it's not about whether we choose to or not to do, it's about what guidance we have coming to us from our regional support team, of which we have another meeting this coming Friday to talk specifically about that. And so at elementary, the state came out with new guidance that said elementary kids can be closer to each other. They can be within 3 feet of each other or even less if needed. They have not changed their guidance on secondary students. So I will tell you, I absolutely would love to see our kids come back full in person, but we also have a lot of staff saying, hang on a minute, we already know a kid age 11 to 17 is twice as likely to transmit the virus as a kid ages 10 and under. We've been hearing that from the state, and we've been talking about that with our elementary staff to help them feel comfortable to come back. So then to all of a sudden say, okay, you're all coming back 1,600 kids in a high school without that being changed by the state. So we're really, I get the pressure, and I want to emphasize wholeheartedly, our goal is to get everybody back in school, and hybrid does not work well. I'm not in any way disagreeing about that. And I know there are families that say, I just bring them all back, bring them hybrid, and forget those kids who are learning online, just whatever. They can just study on their own and do independent study. We have an obligation to educate those kids that are learning online full time. And that's one of the biggest challenges we're facing, is that And like I told you before, when 56% of your kids are learning online only, and you say, okay, we're going to dedicate all of our teacher time to in-person instruction and not leave anything left over to serve the kids who are in. One of the biggest challenges is that we got a governor who has said, you're doing distance learning for anybody who wants it, and you can come back to school now. But there's no additional funding to allow us to hire extra teachers. And even if we tried to, there's none available. Everybody's trying to do the same thing, to be able to staff 2 distinct programs that we don't have separate staff to do. So we have to figure out a way to combine the time. We've been looking into, can we buy a canned curriculum that online students can take? Well, that's fine if it's a few kids and they're high flyers. But when a lot of our students are choosing online only, and in particular, a lot of our poverty and students of color are online only, to not have teachers actually working with those kids feels unethical, right? So that's the big conundrum we're dealing with. And at elementary, we can divide it up because everybody's the same license. It just doesn't work that way in secondary. And I've had many conversations with families about that. And I want to just be clear, it is in no way my choice to say we're not coming back. I want kids back. I'm a parent of a senior in high school myself. And trust me, it's been horrible. I hate it. I absolutely not doing it on purpose. But I just want to also point out that I actually had Kim do a little data dig for me of every single parent that has emailed the board since COVID began or since school began in August about requesting to come back in person. Every single one has been white. We've looked them up. 100%. So I just always want to challenge us about what voices are we not hearing and what else is out there. And so that we're just being really mindful because, and I'm not saying that it's not important and kids aren't just absolutely suffering in distance learning. I totally agree. And I want to see everybody get back. I think it's been a horrible year for so many people. Even our high flyers are tanking right now. I just want to make sure that our decision is based on data. That's why I want to do a survey of our families and figure out where they're at. I need to have some guidance from the state that says it's safe to come back in person in high schools. To go against what they're telling us and just say we're going to open up and come back full in person, that doesn't quite feel safe or right either. I mean, I just want to be really clear. I want to use all the data points and I want to challenge you guys, challenge me to bring you the data that you don't have. If there's pieces of data you're not seeing, but you want to see, challenge me to find it and bring it to you. But what I don't want to have is a debate about, do we want kids in school or don't we? Because my gosh, there's not a single one of us who doesn't want the kids in school. And we're working like crazy to try to make sure we get as many staff vaccinated, especially, by the way, we started looking at who are the teachers that have very unique licensures that we need them to be able to be in school, because we can't duplicate that person and their job qualifications and if they have a medical condition. So there's so many layers to this, but what I just want to be very careful that we don't, I think we have to advocate for trying to get kids back, and I'm all for doing so. I just want to make sure that we do it responsibly and that we don't ignore many segments of our student population. That's all I'm going to continue to advocate for. So it's not easy though. Trust me, I deal with phone calls every single day. And one thing I will tell you also, even ahead of students returning full-time, just had meetings with all of our secondary principals. We are ramping up the numbers of students that are being brought in person right now in our secondaries for extra academic support. And we already have buses running to all of our middles and high schools have kids coming back to them. And we have buses running, particular students with special ed needs, ESL students, and struggling learners. And we're expanding every week the number of students that are in those categories that are coming in person. So I just got, right before I joined this Zoom tonight, I got a call from another superintendent saying, what are you gonna do for high school? How are you gonna teach those kids in distance learning? What are you gonna do? And I said, we're trying to figure that out. I could buy a canned curriculum. I'm kind of against doing that because we have a lot of kids in distance learning who also need teacher support. And I said, what are you going to do? And he's like, I don't know. Like, it's just so hard to run 2 systems. So we're trying to figure that out, and that's part of what's taken some of the time to figure all that out. But, and I don't want to dismiss, because Michelle, I do hear what you're saying, and my goodness, I have a kid of my own who's really struggling and with mental health right now in particular. So I know how it feels. I just want to make sure that we're weighing all the data points that we need to be weighing when we make our decisions. That's all.
Can I say something? I hear the sense of urgency, and I'm glad there is a sense of urgency, because I think like, I mean, you're a mom, Michelle's a mom, I mean, you've got kids in school. They're sad, they're lonely. The kids who testified yesterday before the Senate Ed Committee about mental health, oh my goodness, heartbreaking. You know, two moms testified whose kids committed suicide. I mean, it's just.
It's one of my greatest fears every single night when I go to bed right now. Yeah. It's one of my greatest fears.
Sure, I know it, and it's real. I mean, these kids are addicted to their screens, and it's not healthy. And you know, so they're going to need so much. I mean, kids are resilient. That's good. I mean, they'll come back and they'll get through it. But it's tough right now. I also want to say that this could have been different if we had leadership at the federal level. My son and his family are in Australia. There is no COVID there. They are in school. They are at the beach. They're in restaurants and bars and whatever. And they took steps early, you know. We had no leadership at the federal level. Fortunately, that's changed, and there is a sense of urgency at the federal level, and I think that's going to make a difference as well. So that's hopeful, and hope is what we need at this point. Anyway, and then finally, there's a lot of chatter at the state level about private schools. What do we know about? I know we have a lot of private schools in our district. What are you hearing about their experience?
Well, they've been all back in person the whole time, most of them. Most of them haven't ever shut down at all. So they, and they've really dramatically increased in enrollment for sure. There's a lot of families who really, they were looking for that option, and I was wishing we could offer it. I mean, that was really hard to see so many of our enrollment numbers go. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely cases of COVID coming out of the private schools, and I know that because I've got a connection at the health department that's been telling me such, but exact numbers, I don't know.
Christine, I have a question. So based on what you just said, I'm wondering whether we have a policy on getting the vaccine or coming back, or like when we have all the high school students gathering, do we have any or maybe we should work on it, on policy on what students should be getting maybe the vaccine, and show that they have, kind of like how most of us that have kids in the schools have to show that our students have had vaccine for, MMR or what, chicken pox or whatever. Is there anything in the works about this COVID? And is that maybe at the MDE level, maybe that they're working on it? Because I'm thinking that yes, we can have students come back together, but if there is one in the bunch that does not have the vaccine or doesn't believe in vaccine, we might have an outbreak or pandemic among our students. So how do we deal with that? Do we have a plan?
We do have a vaccine policy for regular vaccines, but no, there's no requirement to have students take the vaccine because they can't even get it right now. There's no available vaccine for students. So, I mean, we can't and if the state says we're supposed to open schools, but the state isn't providing vaccines for that age group, you know, we can't really be requiring it if it's not even available for them. But
Yes,
going forward, you know.
I know
yeah.
that, but do we want to be proactive and work on something ahead of time?
Say more about what you would like to see in that kind of a policy.
Well, what I'm thinking about is that, yes, if I'm a parent of a 17-year-old and I want them to go to school, and then there's another parent that does not want them to get the vaccine, how do we mitigate those conflicting perspectives?
That would have to be a change in state law. Right now, we do have vaccine policies in place. So let's go back to the measles vaccine, right? We have those rules and guidelines that everybody has to get certain vaccinations, right, at certain grade levels. And that already exists in state policies and laws. But there is a form a family can fill out as a conscious objector saying, I don't believe in vaccinations and I'm not going to get it. And in the state law, that's allowable. And if they fill out that form, they can come to school without a measles vaccine. Now, the reason it's been okay and we've been fairly safe is because we have pretty good herd immunity with regard to the measles, right? I think we're a long way off from having that in place for COVID yet. And so it really would be a change in state law about, you know, what their future guidelines might be regarding state law and COVID vaccinations. But as of right now, that would not be under our jurisdiction to kind of make a decision about that. We'd have to kind of follow state law related to that. And currently COVID vaccine is not one of those required vaccines you have to go to school. So it would have to be a change in state law.
Yeah, that was my question. It's going to have to be a change in state law.
And who knows what's going to come in the future with that, right? So like of the required vaccines to come to school, for example, the flu vaccine is not one of the required. You don't have to get it. That's truly optional, right? But you do have to get a measles vaccine, right? So there are certain vaccinations that make the list of, you know, the requireds, and there are those that don't make the list. And so it'll be interesting to see, and very likely in the future of COVID, it's probably going to become something, an additive into the regular flu vaccine, that kind of every time people get a booster for the flu, you get some COVID prevention in there too. That's what they're saying, but that'll probably take a little bit of time before state law catches up with that.
Thank you.
It's like drinking from a fire hose of drama, right? Like it's so difficult to like ride the wave of making the right decisions every day and how to make your best choices. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ben.
That's okay. I've heard you mention a couple times, even way back in the fall, that, you know, if a parent reaches out and says, you know, my son or daughter needs extra support, academic support, we can make that happen. How often is that being provided to some of the parents that have voiced concern about being in distance too long? I know I know a lot of the times, a lot of the support that students need is just that extra interaction with friends and other people. But, you know, high ranking in my list is academics. That's what we're here for, not necessarily interaction with other people, but that academic component is something we can definitely provide. And I know we've said that you can bring in students that have that extra academic need, that are falling through the cracks. How does that work? Is that going to become a staffing issue? Can we support all the kids that need that extra boost in person? And how do we set that up, or how is it going, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so it looks a little different at every site, but every school has their hot list of kids. They're monitoring who's failing a class, who's failing more than one class, and they have teams looking at intervention and supports for every student who's falling behind in that regard. It looks in a lot of different ways. For example, we've had programs where students come in on the days that, you know, they do get a bus, they come to school, they get a lunch, and they have support networks set up. In current distance learning time, you know that Wednesday is typically our asynchronous day in distance learning. Our schools are full of kids on Wednesdays because we bring in a lot of people for academic support and tutoring on those days. And there's just every school's got some different systems in place for how they set that up. They've got assigned people for phone calling and working through individual needs with kids. So yeah, I mean, I can bring back more information on it, but it's slightly different in every school, but I could certainly give you guys some more data on how that's happening.
Is that available to like anybody? You don't have to have like a IEP or anything like that. Anybody can come in if that need is there for the academic support.
Yeah, you have to work it out with the school administration on who they need, but yeah, they have different levels of support and programs for kids. Yes, no, you don't have to have an IEP for that.
So a lot of times the principals can get involved with that and
oftentimes it's school counselors who are monitoring grades and figuring out who's at risk and who needs to be brought in for extra supports. And yeah.
I would think if that works really well, if that's successful right now, and I know it's definitely not perfect, I would think that would help out in a lot of the academic cases where you might have some issues with the subject matter. If you're having trouble with math over distance learning, which I can totally see, that could help out a lot. It's not perfect, but it's kind of like a halfway.
No, and they're actually dramatic now that the case rates have started to drop into somewhat more normal ranges. They are dramatically increasing in secondary, the numbers of kids coming in and scheduled to come in beginning even next week and the week after, now that those case rates have been dropping to the extent that they have been. And, even if you only bring in 100 kids to the school, you can socially distance 100 kids in a high school very differently than 1,600 kids in a high school.
Christine, I did want to follow up that I know that you want to open the schools as bad as I do. I know that. So I don't want to give the impression that I don't think that. I do feel like things are moving in the right direction as far as the COVID numbers and the vaccine and all that. So it looks like, there's light at the end of the tunnel. But I think that probably at every meeting until the schools are open, I'll probably advocate for the schools to open.
I agree, yes.
Not out of any, not being critical or animosity, but just I really feel like I need to do that. So.
I appreciate that. And I totally understand. And I do agree. And one thing I will say, we're going to be putting out a communication to secondary families, hopefully by the end of this week, that really shows all of the work that's going into figuring this out, because they also need to know what's coming, what's the plan. And we've been really, really stuck in limbo for a while, and it's been really uncomfortable to be there. But I agree. And I agree, Michelle, and I totally understand it's your job to also advocate. And I think we have a lot of people calling with very, very concerned about their children's well-being, and we need to continue to do more. And I hope that if we can get out there with even a plan and some dates, here's where the plan is to change plans, and people will have some hope at the end of the tunnel too, because I think people are feeling really desolate right now.
Yeah, I second what Michelle just said. We all want, that's why we're here. We want students to be in the schools, and we want them to be there in person. But we support your decision on your leadership and when it can be safe for them to be there. So yeah, I second what Michelle just said.
Thank you. I got to be honest too. The guidance from the state has been changing every single week. And one superintendent can talk to a regional support team and another one can the same day, and we have totally different answers. So that's been really challenging, I'll be honest.
Christine, I was wondering if we have any information on the risk of spread between 11 and 12-year-olds that are sixth grade students versus 17 and 18-year-old high school seniors. I don't know if it's just once someone kind of enters puberty that they have more of an adult body and then they're a lot more likely to spread it than someone who's below that age, or if it's just kind of gradual as they go through middle school and high school.
So what we've been hearing is it really kind of comes down to how big is your body. So a younger child's respiratory system is just a lot smaller. They don't have as much power to spread the virus because their respiratory system is smaller. So, and we've had a lot of conversations. I've got 5th grade teachers who are like, okay, I know it says they're safe to have 5th grade back, but I have some really big 5th graders who kind of probably body weight or size are more like 15-year-olds, you know, and you might see a 6th grader who's got the body size of a typical 10-year-old, big range in that regard. But generally what they've been telling us, Caleb, is that it has more to do with how big is your body and how big is your respiratory system. That's why they're finding younger kids can't spread it as far, right? So they may cough, but the particles don't go as far when your system is tinier, right? So there's probably a lot of range with regard to, and the other thing they're saying is it can be also depend on your body. Some people, they're finding even you can be the same size, same height, same weight. One can be a spreader much more than another, same body size. So it's not entirely dependent on body size. Different people contract and spread the virus at different rates than others, and they don't have all the reasons why. But the guidance that they gave us, I mean, obviously, you know, up to age 10, and then suddenly at 11, you're not magically going to be more contagious than a 10-year-old. But that's just kind of the basis of their guidance. And I think it really, what they've been telling us is it's really about the size of the bodies. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. I had one more question. Do we know how much protection our employees will have from the time they get the first shot until they are able to get that second shot a month later?
We've been told that there can be up to 50% protection within a week of the first shot. But then after they get the second shot, that it gets above 90%. So there is some immediate protection pretty quickly after getting the shot. I'll say this too, we have had some employees who've gotten the shot who actually feel a little bit ill. And I don't want to in any way scare people away from getting the vaccine. I know I sure will get it when my turn comes along, which by the way, will be last in the school district of the staff. But we have had some staff, and our guidance has been, if you suddenly feel like you have flu-like symptoms after you get the shot, you still should stay home and get a COVID test. So one of the questions we are debating about too is, as all these 540 people go get a shot this week, how many are we going to have call in sick because they're feeling ill after the shot? I even heard Anthony Fauci talking about how he got the shot, and he said the second dose he felt worse than the first dose, and he said it was, you know, a good 36 hours to 72 hours where he felt pretty unwell. So it can happen, and different people will have that. So that's another thing we're trying to prepare for. Are we going to need more substitute teachers as we batch vaccinate everybody? And what's that going to look like? And, you know, it's like everything we're doing is so new to us. It's just such a unique time to be in.
All right.
I have a question. Piggybacking off Caleb's question about the age and all that, do you have any research or articles to back up the how COVID is contagious amongst the age groups and all that you can give us so that we can be able to talk about it with, yeah, when I talk about things, I usually, you know, I want to back it up with research. So do you have any research that you can send us?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly get it from the Department of Health. I mean, that's coming to us from the Department of Health. They're the ones who gave us that information. So, but we can certainly go to them and have them send us some of that. And I know Alicia would have some of that. So Kim, if you could just kind of add that on our to-do list to track down and get that for you. Absolutely.
That'll be great. Thank you.
I'm with you. I'm always like, give me some articles to back up what I'm saying here. I do understand that.
Christine, do you know if anybody has declined the vaccine from our district? I mean, I guess not. Oh, they have. Okay.
We have had some staff decline, and I believe that what we've been told by the state is they will not tell us who declines by name, but they will tell us with each batch how many decline. And so like we sent out notification tonight at just before 6 p.m. to our 542. As of 30 minutes later, Trisha texted me that we already had 4 decline. So, but a lot of them hadn't even gotten through the information yet. I'll have to check and see how many declined of our original 25. But there are some, and there's some who have said, you know, I don't want to get it right now, but I'd like to get it a little later. I want some other people to go first, you know. And I had another email from a staff member who said, you know, I just got an immune therapy shot and I'm not supposed to get the vaccine within 2 weeks of getting this other shot. So can you pass me up this time, but include me in the next batch? So there's a lot of that stuff going on as well.
And are you able to get demographic information on that?
Information on what?
Demographics.
Oh, demographics. I can ask them. I'm not sure if they'll give us demographics on who turns it down. Because they are not, I guess I'll have to see if the state is keeping track of that, because what they're doing is they're not telling us who turns it down. So I can see if the state has that data, but we wouldn't have that data unless they give us the names. And they told us they're not going to give us the names.
If it's anonymous though, shouldn't they be able to just give you demographic information without having names attached to it?
It depends, I suppose, if they collect that data from the person who calls to say, I don't want to get the shot. They would have to collect that data of who that person is. I can look and see what they have.
Okay.
Christina, a while back, I remember there was concern about people with allergies getting at least one of the vaccines. Is that a concern? Or do you know if the people who are declining, you know, like you said, maybe they want some other people to go first? Are they willing to work? No.
Yeah, I mean, for us, if you've been offered the vaccine and you're refusing to take it, then the expectation is you're going to come to work or you're going to need to take a leave of absence, right? I mean, we're not going to say you can't, I mean, unless there's some medical reason why you're not taking the vaccine, but if you're just taking it, you decide you're not going to take it, and then we have offered it to you, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there's not going to be the option to continue to not come to work if you've already been offered the vaccine, you know what I'm saying? And most people, you know, there's obviously a rotation. When we get to the end of our list, we're going to send out a message to all of our staff and say, okay, if you haven't been vaccinated yet and you still want to, here's your chance, you know? So we're going to go back and scoop up everybody who may have passed along the way who has changed their mind. But to be honest, again, I don't know if the state is collecting data on the reason people are declining, but I can certainly ask more about that. We haven't been given any reports yet from the state. I will tell you, they are sort of running blind through all this. It's very chaotic, but we've gotten no data back about rates of declining or any other the data yet. So I'm sure there'll be some reports collected eventually, and I'm not quite sure what all they're collecting right now either. But I'll certainly check and see what we have and what we can get from them.
Yeah, I think it'll be good to have data on whether staff of color are declining the vaccine at a higher rate than, you know, white folks, for instance. Mm-hmm. So.
Anecdotally, I'll say, of the names that I'm personally aware of, because they have sent something to me, I think they've been mostly white declining, but that's just my own anecdotal, and there's a whole lot of numbers who haven't had a chance to respond yet. But we'll have to see if the state is giving us any data on that. It will be very interesting, I think, for sure. I just hope that it's not being rolled out in such a chaotic fashion that they don't have any data at the end. We'll see.
It could also be that they have the guts to actually email you and let you know. So, you know.
Totally agree. And that's why I say it's not data. It's just, that's just anecdotally. Yeah, we don't know.
All right. Christina, I think you have another item.
My other one, I'm not even going to go into, it's for your reference. It's in board book. So that way it's also public record. It's just our typical staffing calendar. I wanted to say that doesn't look very different than any previous year. So you can see that, you know, we typically try to backwards map. So if we do end up with any vacancies, we're able to recruit by the time of spring job fairs and such. So it's just for your reference, and obviously for the public, it's there, but I don't need to do, there's no presentation for that. So it's just more for your reference, and if you have questions about it.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions or comments on the calendar? Okay, so next on the agenda, we have our action items, and the first action item is from the business office, and it's actually acknowledgement of contributions, and it's me. Let me open this quick. So Minnesota Statute 123B02 permits school boards to receive for the benefit of the district bequest donations or gifts for any proper purpose and apply the same to the purpose designated. In that behalf, the board may act as a trustee of any trust created for the benefit of the district and for the benefit of the pupils thereof. Therefore, the Director of Business Services recommends the following resolution. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 622 that the school board accept with appreciation the following contributions and permit their use as designated by the donors. So we have Tartan Parent Group, $2,867.54 to Tartan High School students. Harrius, $500 for North High Robotics Program. Amy Colborn and alto sax for Maplewood Middle School Band. Connie Wolk, $25 for Eagle Point Holiday Helping Hands. Deb Nordman, Cub Food gift cards for Eagle Point Holiday Helping Hands. Denise Katchmark, Aldi gift card, Amazon gift card, and $75 for Eagle Point Holiday Helping Hands. Lakeview Lutheran Church gift cards for Weaver families. Peacemaker, Minnesota, $270 for Webster families. Maplewood Oakdale Lions Club, 9 snack baskets for all elementary schools for staff appreciation. Joan and Mike Stallman, $50 for Meals on Wheels program. David and Christine L. Anderson, $50 for Meals on Wheels. KB Service Company, $500 for Meals on Wheels. Sue Solomon, $25 for Meals on Wheels. Ruth Skog, $20 for Meals on Wheels. Margaret Hanson, $100 for Meals on Wheels. Tim McCain Graphic Options, $50 for Meals on Wheels. Betty Mott, $100 for Meals on Wheels. Hans and Becky Navy, $100 for Meals on Wheels. Paul and Pam Woodward, $20 for Meals on Wheels. Jules and Darlene Lopersbeck, $500 for Meals on Wheels. Nancy Johnson, $50 for Meals on Wheels. Walter and Mary Lindman, $200 for Meals on Wheels. Diane Donatel, $100 for Meals on Wheels. Stacy and Mike Hafner, $100 for Meals on Wheels. Diana Crenshaw, $50 for Meals on Wheels. James Fitzpatrick, in memory of Gigi Fitzpatrick, $500 for Meals on Wheels. David and Mary Burdick, $50 for Meals on Wheels. Rick and Judy Stenberg, $50 for Meals on Wheels. Carol Lynn, $20 for Meals on Wheels. Cheryl and Pat Geisberg, $200 for Meals on Wheels. Pam and Dan Norton, $45 for Meals on Wheels. Catherine Legness, $400 for Meals on Wheels. Russell and Lynn Howe, $50 for Meals on Wheels. Scott and Julie Wozlick, $100 for Meals on Wheels. Kathleen Johnson, $50 for Meals on Wheels. Tina and Jeffrey Gollard, $10 for Meals on Wheels. Lori Carnes, $50 for Meals on Wheels. Randy Edmondson, $20 for Meals on Wheels. Ruth Paisley, $50 for Meals on Wheels. Kimberly Takaido $75 for Meals on Wheels. Phyllis Kish, $30 for Meals on Wheels. Lee Ann Sepola, $50 for Meals on Wheels. Delania Siltman, in memory of Alwyn Siltman, $300 for Meals on Wheels. Lori Rothman, $40 for Meals on Wheels. Therese and James Falkenbridge, $200 for Meals on Wheels. Tony Mitchell, $10 for Meals on Wheels. Maplewood North Lions, $250 for Meals on Wheels. Michael Testa, $50 for Meals on Wheels. This brings the total fiscal 2020-2021 monetary contributions to $14,680.92. Thank you so much to all those donors. And can I get a motion and a second to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Anderson, second by Martin. All in favor say aye, and Kim, please call the roll.
Caleb Anderson,
Aye.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Julia Martins,
Aye.
Charlotte Natardi,
So, sorry, aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. And that is approved. And again, thank you to all those donors. Lots of Meals on Wheels. Next on our agenda, we have the approval of the 2020-2021 budget, and Randy.
Greetings, Chair Yenner and directors of the board and Superintendent Tucci Osorio. What I'd like to do today is go over our May budget revisions. And remember, we also have a budget revision that happens, January budget revision, and we also have a budget revision that happens in May. So I'm going to share my screen here with the budget revisions. Nothing's really changed since we looked at these and discussed them at our January work session. A lot of this, of course, is due to COVID. We planned our budget with no COVID effects, and in the January budget revisions and then in the May budget revisions, we will take into consideration those effects in both revenue items and expenditure items for the COVID-19. So a lot of these, again, have impacted us. So the decreases in revenue are because of our decrease in enrollment. And so I've adjusted our enrollment to coincide with the state aid decreases that we're seeing, which is about $3 million. And then, of course, we did receive some COVID CRF funds that needed to be expended by December 31st of 2020. Again, these were great expenditures because it gave us not only one-to-one technology, but air purifiers and HVAC modifications, and it definitely was a great use of funds that we had to actually expend in 4 months. So, hats off to cabinet and budget supervisors, et cetera, for coming up to ways to benefit our school district during this COVID process. So as it sits, you can kind of see the budget that you approved in June at the top here, and the impact then of the decreases in revenue and the increases in revenue per the COVID CRF funds. And then, of course, the expenditures here are right now just COVID CRF fund grant expenditures. So you can kind of see that right now we're sitting with expenditures greater than revenues of about $4.6 million. The same is true with the food service, and we've adjusted all their revenues and expenditure accounts to account for universal feeding. Again, kids not being in the buildings, etc. And you can kind of see what we started with at the top here with our original budgets that were not COVID impacted. And again, in this revision also, Paula Polkamp and her staff Paul and Marie, who's our nutrition services coordinators. They've done a great job, and they received an $800,000+ grant, which we recognized here also in revenue for adult feeding, which was awesome. And so we fed adults until December 31st, which was awesome. And again, looking at community service, you can kind of see the adjustments to expenditures and revenues that have occurred. Again, the big one, of course, is the community education decrease in revenue. And that's mostly due to Adventure Connection not having kids in our buildings, et cetera. So you can kind of see, at least at this juncture, what the impacts are as of January here. Again, we will do some updates for the budget in May as we get a little bit more information moving forward. We've used this information to load our projection model to plan for the 2020 or 21-22 budget. And so right now, the cabinet and we'll be working with the principals and then doing some recommendations with you folks for 21-22 budget recommendations. So with that, I'll take any questions that anybody might have.
Randy, do we know if there's going to be any increased costs for employees, health insurance expenses due to COVID? I know that vaccines are supposed to be covered, but if there's extended hospital stays or any type of increase in emergency room visits?
A great question, Caleb. Right now, we don't see a problem with with that with our health insurance. We're self-insured, remember, and we started that about 7 years ago, and it's been a great thing. In other words, we self-fund our own health plan, and it does have a fund balance right now of about $5.6 million. What we're looking at for next year, well, what's been happening is there's just been a delay in procedures. People last year at the end of the year, decided not to go to the doctor because of COVID, et cetera. Now people are going back to the doctor and getting some of those elective type of procedures done. And so we're seeing expenditures that didn't occur last spring kind of occurring, now in the fall, kind of going into the winter because they're more comfortable, or they can go back into the doctor to do those elective procedures. But right now, we just took a look at our increase as of yesterday, because I just had an insurance committee meeting, was 5.6% increase. That's the projected increase in our insurance premiums for next year. And so right now we're looking at decreasing those down, I believe 3%, so down to 2.6%, by using some of our fund balance. So right now it's looking pretty good as far as projected health costs go. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? And so, go ahead.
Are there any savings? This might be a stupid question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway.
No stupid questions.
I know. I'm a teacher and I always tell my students that. But are there any savings as far as not having as many substitute teachers?
Yes. So that's also a great question. And so, it's kind of interesting because, we will see, as we did last year by not having kids in the classroom, utilities, transportation, substitute teachers. And so, the good news is, yes, so some of those costs, won't be at the budgeted level, and we'll make those adjustments in May. But you're absolutely correct. So, last year we ended up with a larger fund balance than we thought we were going to have, just simply because some of those costs did not happen because of the distance learning piece. But great question. So I would recommend to the board that the board approve the budget revisions as presented tonight.
All right, thanks, Randy. The resolution's really long. Kim, I just need to read the end, right?
Oh, just the one
Yes,
part. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
just the be it resolved part.
And then, like, as always, this is available online or through the business office if someone wants to read the full resolution. Okay. So let me read this. Okay. So therefore, the Director of Business Service recommends the following resolution be approved. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 622 that the 2020-2021 district budget be revised as per the attached listing of changes. So can I get a motion and a second to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Jarman, second by Livingston. All in favor, say aye, and Kim will call a roll.
Caleb Anderson,
Aye.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Julia Martins,
Aye.
Charlotte Tardy, Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Okay, so that budget revision is approved, and thanks again, Randy, for all your work as always on that.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have communications and technology innovation, and I believe Josh.
Great, thank you, Chair Yenner, directors of the board, Superintendent Tucci Osorio, and Cabinet. So we are seeking acceptance tonight of the 622 School Boundary Committee members. Committee members represent students, parents, guardians, and community members. As a reminder, our School Boundary Committee is charged with recommending a new set of school boundaries to the school board for approval that will be implemented in the fall of 2022. I do ask that you allow some flexibility to add or remove members as needed in case someone isn't able to fulfill their role on the committee. We're also looking to add an additional student and 1 to 2 teachers as well. And I'll be sure to update the board with any changes at any upcoming meetings. And so with that, again, I request that the board accept the committee member names for our upcoming 622 School Boundary Committee.
All right, any discussion on this one? Okay. Then I'm going to read this resolution. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 622 that the 622 School Boundary Committee members be accepted as presented. The board also grants authority to the school district administration to add or remove members as needed. So can I get a motion and a second to approve that resolution?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Livingston,
Second.
second by Anderson. All in favor, say aye, and Kim will call the roll.
Caleb Anderson,
Aye.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Julia Martins,
Aye.
Charlotte Natardi,
Yeah, aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Okay, so that motion is approved, and thank you, Josh, and thank you to all those community members who volunteered to serve on that committee. I know you had a lot of volunteers, Josh, and it's nice that people are willing to give their time to do that kind of work.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have the superintendent with revision of policy 809.
Yes, thank you, Chair Yenner and directors of the board. This is just a very slight revision to our policy, our COVID-19 face covering policy. You may recall we adopted that back in the fall. And there's been a little change in the governor's order. And so this new revision just updates that information. For example, there originally it stated that face coverings had to be worn at all. Right now we have to wear face coverings at all times during exercising indoor. Before it was like you could take them off if you were exerting yourself, and now they want you to keep them on. The state is recommending that staff consider wearing a face shield and a mask both. That's not a requirement, but a recommendation. So there's just some language updates here. Normally, when we propose a new policy for adoption, we do 3 formal readings, but MSA has confirmed that because this is a recommendation based on a change in state statute, and it does fall under the COVID-19, we had an earlier conversation this year about some policies can be adopted more swiftly under emergency times. And so you can see that there's just a few minor adjustments to that policy, which was a new policy for us last fall anyway. So I'm just recommending that the revisions be approved as presented tonight.
All right. Any questions or comments? I'm going to read the resolution, the full resolution, because it's short. So the Minnesota Department of Education recently updated its Safe Learning Plan, which now recommends that school districts require staff to wear face masks and face shields. The plan sets out expectations for this recommendation. At the same time, Minnesota changed the requirements regarding face coverings when engaging in indoor physical activities. In light of these recent developments, MSBA has revised their model policy and is encouraging school districts to revise their policies as well. Therefore, the superintendent of schools recommends the following resolution. Be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 622 hereby revises the following policy, 809 COVID-19 face covering policy. So can I get a motion in a second to approve that?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Martins.
Second.
Second by Jarman. All in favor say aye, and Kim, please call the roll.
Caleb Anderson,
Aye.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Julia Martins,
Aye.
Charlotte Natardi,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Okay, so that motion is approved as well. Thank you for that, Christine. Next on our agenda, we have school board with that February 20th, 2021 board retreat agenda and location. Says we have the date and time set for the retreat, but we need to set the agenda and location. MSBA will be facilitating our morning, and we will use the remainder of the time as superintendent check-in so that Superintendent Tucci Osorio can present any items which require attention. After an informal poll, the majority of us preferred to meet virtually. So I recommend that the February 20th, 2021 retreat, which takes place from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. in a virtual format, contains the following agenda. 1, school board self-evaluation, 2, governance refresher, and 3, superintendent check-in. So can I get a motion and a second for approval?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Hunt.
Second.
Second by Jarman. All in favor, say aye. And Kim, please call the roll.
Caleb Anderson,
Aye.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Julia Martins,
Aye.
Charlotte Natardi,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Okay, so that's approved and our retreat agenda and location is set. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have board communications. Does anyone want to start us out? Caleb, do you have anything tonight?
Nothing tonight.
All right, thanks. Charlotte, do you have anything? No? Okay.
What, do I have anything?
Actually, Charlotte, I'm going to come back to you at the end because you're new, so so I shouldn't have called on you early, but this is just an opportunity for board members to share anything about, you know, since our last board meeting, about maybe committees that they serve on or things that they've seen or experienced in the district, or, you know, really could be anything.
Oh,
Do you want me to come back?
No, I'm brand new. I don't have it.
Okay.
But I just want to have a shout out for all our paraprofessionals, because I received an email today that is Paraprofessional Week. And I just want to have a shout out for all our paraprofessionals that have had to pivot and serve our students well. And I know they're doing a great job. And I just, yeah, shout out to them. Yay to the paraprofessionals.
Thanks, Shirley. All right. Steve, do you have anything?
No, I just, something that I'd like to see us visit in the future is the way we're handling public engagement. It seems to me that there's not a whole lot of difference between the emails that people send the board entirety that the chair answers, between those that people say, well, can you just read this at the board meeting? Because I'd kind of like not to have to show up and take ownership for it. I just want to send it along to you guys. So I'd like to see us figure out at some point how we're going to handle moving forward, because I suspect we'll have a lot of these as we get into boundary changes and things like that. So I'd like us to see us either agree to keep doing it that way or agree in some sort of revision on how we handle public engagement electronically. Just a thought for the future.
All right, thanks, Steve. Is that something we could put on a agenda for a study session, Kim or Christine?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, we don't have a study session in February, but we certainly could throw that in quickly to our board retreat, like under my superintendent update. I will say I did bring up that same question to Kim this morning, Steve. So I agree with you, because I said, I'd like to hear people say their comments in their own voices, and there is a way we can let them into the Zoom, into the waiting. And we have offered that actually to people. So I think it's a question as to whether we want to require it. If you want to make a public comment, you have to show up, and because we can put people in a waiting room on the Zoom and we can take them out of the Zoom when they're done. Or do you send your message? I had this conversation this morning because a lot of parents that send me long emails, I say, okay, can we talk? Let me call you. Or let's Zoom, let's talk about it, because I do think there's a lot to be said for some actual face-to-face communication. And so I'm glad you brought that up, Steve. I think it's a good point. And I can certainly weave that in. I can send a little precursor to that before we get to that, but we can certainly include that under my check-in.
All right, great, thank you. Anything else, Steve? Okay, Nancy, do you have anything?
No, not anything tonight. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Ben, do you have anything?
The board self-evaluation's due tomorrow. It took me 5 minutes to take it.
Okay.
I'm
Great,
resending
thanks,
you all
Ben.
the link this evening, so you'll have it in your inbox again.
Yeah, I completed mine a few days ago. It doesn't take very long.
Julia?
No, nothing tonight. I do agree with Steve's comment about hearing from our community members. I think there's some value about us being able to see them, because you can see a lot in people's faces with emotion, and you know, a lot of them are looking towards us to make some really big decisions. And I think it's really valuable for them to see us and our faces as well, and how we are hearing them and responding. Maybe it not even be email, but just, you know, facial wise. I think that's really important.
All right.
Michelle, are you the last one for the update?
I'm the last one.
Can I interject really briefly before you update? Because I know you're not going to congratulate yourself, but just because I was sending you guys an update today and I hadn't gotten it out yet, so it's coming to you all. But Michelle has actually been elected to our MSBA Board of Directors. So She'll be representing District 6, which includes these districts of Mounds View, Roseville, White Bear Lake, Forest Lake, Matamidi, South Washington County, Stillwater, and North St. Paul. So congratulations to Michelle. I know we had talked a lot about what it would mean for us to have a representative from our district finally there at that table. And so I know I'm overstepping into board communications, but you're not going to brag about yourself, so I had to brag for you. So congratulations. That's a huge thing for us. I think it's so important to be able to advocate for our needs. And I especially believe this is important because we among all those districts listed are the most diverse school district. And I feel like we really need to continue to put our voice at that table. So thank you for really making that effort. That was really important.
Okay, thank you, Christine. And thanks to all of you because, you're voted on by your school board members. So thank you for, those of you who were able to do that. Thank you. I also just briefly wanted to mention that I serve on the 916 board. I think maybe Charlotte and Julia, maybe you're not super familiar with that, and I'd be happy to talk with you about it at any time, and maybe you are familiar. At any rate, 916 is currently going through a superintendent search. So just to let you know, their superintendent is retiring and they're searching for a new superintendent right now. Okay, anything else? If not, then we have future board meetings, February 20th, 2021, the board retreat from 9 to 2 p.m. And then February 23rd, 2021, board business meeting at 6 p.m. in the boardroom or virtual format. If there is nothing else, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Jarman. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Martin. All in favor say aye, and Kim, please call the roll.
Caleb Anderson.
Aye.
Steve Hunt.
Aye.
Ben Jarman.
Aye.
Nancy Livingston.
Aye.
Julia Martins.
Aye.
Charlotte Natardi.
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye.